Chapter 1. Powerless. The fall begins. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Begin where the steps begin, which is at the bottom, or rather, at the honest naming of the bottom, which is not the same event. The bottom happens to you. The naming is the first thing in a long time that you do. If you have ever stood in your own kitchen at some ruined hour and understood, with a clarity that felt almost gentle, that you cannot stop, that the thing you reach for has long since started reaching for you, then you know what step 1 knows, and you know it from inside. But the step's second clause is the one that opens the door wider than the room's. Our lives had become unmanageable. Perhaps you have never lost a day to a bottle. Have you lost a decade to a resentment? Have you checked, one more time, the device that was reshaping your attention into something you no longer recognized? Have you organized an entire personality around being needed, or being right, or being safe, and felt the maintenance costs mounting past what the enterprise could ever repay? Manageability is the universal solvent of step 1. Nobody's life is manageable. The drinker is simply the one whose unmanageability got photographed. Merton gave the condition its lasting name. Every one of us is shadowed by an illusory person, a false self, a self assembled out of what it consumes, defended like a construction site, requiring, his word, constant supply. Read that sentence slowly and notice the vocabulary. Shadowed, illusory, supply. Merton is describing an addiction. Not a metaphorical one, a structural one. The false self is not a self that happens to have addictions. It is an addiction that happens to look like a self. A habit of being that must be fed, that lies about its feeding, and that experiences every threat to its supply as a threat to existence itself. Finley, who learned this under Merton at Gethsemane and then spent a career confirming it in the therapy room, pivots his whole account of the spiritual life on exactly this point. The question underneath every compulsion is the question of who you actually are. Now bring May's clinical eye to the same terrain, because May supplies the mechanism. Attachment, he observed, is in its very etymology a nailing. The word descends from the Old French for fastened, nailed to. Desire, which was made to range over the whole horizon of the good, gets nailed to an object. The object can be anything. A molecule, a person, an income, an image of yourself as the one who holds it all together. Once nailed, the desire keeps all its original force, that is the horror and the clue, but spends that force on something too small to receive it. And this, May saw, is why the psychology of addiction and the theology of idolatry are one discipline wearing two coats. An idol is not a bad thing. It is usually a good thing asked to be God. An addiction is not a bad desire. It is the best desire in you, the thirst Jung named, misdirected to a creature and then defended with the full liturgical apparatus of worship. Ritual, secrecy, sacrifice, tithing, denial, and the steady offering up of everything else you love. Say it in the oldest grammar. You were built with a longing whose only adequate object is infinite, and you have been spending it, we all have, on finite things. That is the entire predicament, stated once. The finite things are not the problem. They were given, most of them, as gifts. The problem is the aim. Augustine called it disordered love. The rooms call it the disease. This book will mostly call it what May called it. Idolatry, because that word keeps the accent where it belongs. Not on the substance, but on the worship. Addiction is the paradigm case of the human predicament, not because everyone drinks but because everyone worships, and worship mistimed always ends in some kitchen at some ruined hour, whether or not there is a bottle on the counter. And here is the strange mercy hiding inside step 1, the mercy this whole book is built to unfold. The step does not ask you to fight. It asks you to fall. We admitted we were powerless. This is not a battle plan. It is the abandonment of one. Everything in you that was raised on ascent. Climb the ladder, gather the virtues, white knuckle the summit. Here's that abandonment is defeat. The rooms know better, and so did Roar, who found the same secret at the center of the gospel. You stop holding yourself up, so you can be held. The fall you have been fighting your whole life. The fall your addiction was both fleeing and, in its own counterfeit way, rehearsing, since every intoxication is a cheap imitation of surrender, turns out to be the one motion the whole spiritual life is made of. Not the climb. The fall. Be careful here, because the tradition is careful, and one sentence of fence will spare us a book's worth of confusion later. To say the fall is the way is not to say that everything that ever broke you was necessary. It was not. Some of it should never have been, and this book will look that fact in the eye when we reach the steps of amends, and will not blink. What is being said is smaller and stranger. That the falling itself, the loss of the illusion of management, the giving up of the project of holding yourself up, is not the disaster it appears to be, because you are not falling into nothing. Who catches you is the subject of step 2. But before that door opens, stay one more moment in the honesty of this one, because there is a treasure in the rubble and May would not let us leave without it. The longing that got you into this, nailed, missimed, catastrophic, is not your shame. It is your glory in disguise. It is the size of you. You do not thirst like that because something is wrong with you. You thirst like that because you were made for an ocean, and no bottle, no approval, no perfectly managed life was ever going to be anything but a thimble. May's counsel, which sounds mad until it sounds like the sanest thing you have ever heard, is to stop despising the thirst. To feel affection for your own longing, to treasure the wanting, to be overwhelmed, at last, by the beauty of your need. The rooms have their own compressed translation, and it will do for the road ahead. The admission of powerlessness is not the end of your power. It is the discovery of where power was always going to have to come from. You have fallen, or you are falling, or you are still spending everything you have not to. Whichever is true this hour. The next chapter is about what no fall has ever managed to damage, the you beneath the you that drinks.